I am unsure about kids. They say as a woman, you're supposed to have this whole thing figured out about motherhood, like whether you want it. I had the dream in high school, like I'm going to be married at 25. And then at 27 or 28, we're going to start on a kid. And then hopefully by 30, we're going to get the second kid. And now that I'm 36, I'm like, I don't even know if I want kids anymore or marriage. There's all of this societal pressure on women to be chosen, get the husband, get the house, the car, the white picket fence, and all this other stuff. And it's like, man, who's selling us this dream? What if you don't want that? And I think the choice to enter motherhood or not is not an easy one, right? There's just so much pressure to know. People will ask, like, oh, do you want to have kids one day? Yada shmata. And it's not just a simple yes or no, like, especially in this world, like, it's gone are the days of the American dream. There's a whole new type of dream. As I was writing notes for this video, I was trying to figure out, where did I even get the idea of wanting marriage and kids? Where did that come from, right? Like, we just, sometimes you grow up and you're just like following the assembly line. And this is not to say there's anything wrong with marriage or kids, but it's just, you start to question everything. What did JT say? Question religion, question it all. And that's where I find myself at 36. I'm like, hold on. And I know I can't be the only person out there that feels that way. There's just so much pressure to know whether you want to be a mother or not. I wish I could say it's a simple yes or no answer, or the arrival to that answer is easy, but it's so layered. There's so much nuance there. And then, we'll get into it. I do find it strange when people judge you for not wanting kids. I am not sure if I want a kid or not. Do I think having a mini me or like a little chicken nugget on my hip is so chic and so cute? Yes, but that's not a reason to have a kid. Now that we're stepping back and taking a look at the world that we live in and the things that we are enduring and having to, face, that might not be what you want. And I think that's okay. I think we have to have a serious conversation about the reality of support, right? Everybody knows that it takes a village to raise a child. But I think with the way that the world has been modernized, with also technology and just how things are, running, a lot of women don't have the village that our mothers and grandmothers had. We might live far, we might be chasing dreams. People might work more. You might not have the energy, might not have the finances. Let's be real there, right? You might not have the finances to have a kid. Kids are expensive. Do you know how much daycare is? Yo, I'm like every week with this. That's crazy. That's crazy. All jokes aside, I would love to highlight the sheer amounts of energy that it takes to raise a child. Okay. It's not easy work. It's not something you're just like, and half the times you might not even know what you're doing until like the second kid or maybe like a year or two in. Whether we like to admit it or not, typically children will call their mothers first, right? There's a special kind of bond you have. Once a baby's baked up inside of you and it comes out, of course the kid's going to be connected. It's always going to be like, mom this, mom that, mom this, mom that. That's why I say, like, it takes a sheer amount of energy, but it's not about being selfish. I think it's more so about being self-aware. And if you don't want to have kids, that's fine too. If you do, that's great. You have to do what works for you. But specifically, this video is about those that are in the middle. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It seems cool. A lot of parents I've heard say, like, this is my sense of pride. This is the reason I live, yada, yada, yada. And I do have some pushback on that. Because, yes, kids are great. They're blessings, of course. But I always think about the French mothers. And I remember reading an article, and let me see if I could put it in the description box, but about how they don't make their child the center of their lives. They also have their own lives that they had before the kid and now with the kid. And I always admired that. And it kind of touches on what Emma Greed was talking about with the 3 hour mom thing. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, men do it all the time. Men do it all the time. Hey, to be honest, I'm already tired, right? So I just feel like to add a relationship and kids and like PTA and pickup, and I'm like, oh, that, yeah. And that brings me to my next point, like loving your freedom. I don't think it's selfish to say, like, you know what, I don't want kids or I'm unsure about kids right now. That's how I know that I'm not ready for kids because I think, like, in my heart of hearts, I would absolutely regret giving up my freedom. And I know that sounds so selfish, but I'm just not there yet. And I think it's better to be self aware or to know that about yourself than to bring a kid into this world because society says, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. And then there's also a big part of me as an ambitious woman, which I did like in Emma Greed's book that she kind of talked about it. And she's been talking about it on her press tour for the book, Start With Yourself. Just realizing like you do have a biological clock. And now listen, okay. There are a bunch of successful women that have kids in their 40s and 50s and things like that, if they choose to. So I'm not necessarily worried about that. I think if it's meant for me, God will provide. I just feel like I have so much more to do right now and I can't see it. Yo, that's another thing. We don't talk about this enough. You know how you can envision parts of your life? I have dreams and stuff about success and things that I want to accomplish and do. And I just don't see, I'm like, I haven't seen my husband and my children there yet. So I'm like, oh, I'm not saying it's never going to happen. Well, no, but I just don't see it. A lot of women that I know are just kind of like, don't rush it, girl, or don't do it. And then I'll see like interviews of older women. They're just like, nope, don't do it. Like, save yourselves. And I'm like, oof, I don't know. It just seems like, is it worth it? I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I think it's okay if that's not your path. I think it's totally fine. What I don't like is the shame and judgment that you get from people in general. I think I did a TikTok live and naturally people come into the live and they're asking questions and stuff and this guy was like, "Oh, do you have kids?" And I'm like, "No, I don't have kids." And he's like, "If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?" And I'm like 30, 35. Well, I was 35 at the time. And he's like, "Well, don't you think it's time to have kids?" I'm like, "Whoa, buddy, wanna know me?" I'm like, "You gonna take care of those kids?" Oh, okay. There's so much shame and like judgment around it. And people kind of look at you like, oh, you're broken. Like, what's wrong with you? And it's like, no, they'll try to convince you that maybe you'll regret it later on. And if that's not your path, that's not your path. You know what I mean? You have to do what's best for you. And I think when men say that they don't want kids, no one bats an eye. No one. And this last part, this is actually one of the biggest things for me. Now, you guys know that I am always, always about women's health and women's rights. And the medical mistreatment of Black and Brown women in this country is infuriating and alarming. But it's very real and it's very important. And it's something that I want to touch on. And I think oftentimes our pain is dismissed, right? And we have higher mortality rates. It's insane when you start reading about some of these stories, some of the testing that they were doing on Black and brown women in different countries. And I think navigating pregnancy and having kids requires so much emotional, physical, spiritual labor that I'm not going to sit back and pretend like the medical system isn't fudged, right? But I'm not letting that stop me if I choose to have a kid. But I'm saying I think it's so important for Black and brown women to be very sure about motherhood because also who you have kids with, right? Matters. Who you marry matters, who you're with matters. Like that's a whole nother topic for another day. But to me, childbirth is just too painful or too risky for Black and brown women to just be doing it all willy nilly with anybody. No. No. I found myself in a couple of positions dealing with doctors having to beg for them to listen to my pain and to care about it. And I was often made to feel like I was over exaggerating. And then I go get a diagnosis somewhere else or a second opinion. And the doctor's like, oh, yeah, this is what's happening. So, you know, I don't know. It's really heartbreaking because I see videos like that woman that was in labor. I want to say she was in labor or just finished and she had to appear in court. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Appear in court virtually while you're in a hospital bed with scrubs on. Like, yeah, no. I want to just mention that it's not fear mongering, right? I just think that that's a reality for certain folks in this world. So to me, I'm like, I'm unsure. I just don't want to risk that right now. I haven't really had the best experience with doctors, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. This is all part of it. Imagine what happens during pregnancy, you know. And that's supposed to be a time where you enjoy it and you feel happy and all these other things. So that is a very big deal for me on that. But let's wrap. So I'm not anti-kid, but I'm self-aware. I don't really envision it, so I'm not in a rush to do it. And I'm not going to let society or anyone else kind of pressure me or make me feel guilty about that. And you shouldn't either. You shouldn't. Because listen, at the end of the day, when you become a mother or a parent, there's no give backsies. I mean, people, okay, it's a whole nother topic, but it changes your life. And, if I do change my mind about wanting kids, I want it to come from a place of clarity and stability and support. I think, I got things that I want to work on before, so I'm not passing it down to my kid. So that's why I feel like I'm not ready yet. I don't feel like that's the next step for me. And that's okay. And it's funny because there are some people that know for a fact that they want to be a mother. And I think that's very beautiful. I really do. And some people know that they don't. And I think that's beautiful too, because then you live your life how you want to. There's no shame, no pressure on the timeline. I think everybody should do what works for them, what makes you happy, because at the end of the day, you have to live with your choices because everything is a choice. I'm just curious, ladies out there, where are you in your journey? Are you thinking about motherhood? As much as you're comfortable sharing. If you don't and you're still figuring it out, what has influenced that for you? Just curious. So I'll see you here next time. Bye.